Yeah, so we touched on, Dave's point was working really hard and making lots of money. I tell you what is worse, and I was talking to somebody yesterday in the southwest of England, working really hard and making no money. That's even worse. And they couldn't be talked to about a mindset. They haven't put up their fees. We can't do it in my area. I'm going to lose all my business if I do it. Working really hard and making no dough. That's the worst scenario.
But then it's going back and it's having that conversation. I mean, we talk about mindset a lot, and mindset's a big thing. But some people are not ready to be told that their mindset isn't right, and it's like non-Newtonian. It's like non-Newtonian polymers. You walk across a swimming pool full of custard because you're applying a high force. You don't sink into it. As soon as you stop and wait and very gently stand on it, you sink into it, and that's probably what you need to do with that person is actually don't look at it a hard way of saying, put your fees up, do this, do that. It's actually kind of sit down with them and really very gently understand what the problem is and help them to get past that.
This is the Justin Blake podcast experience for health professionals that mean business. So wherever you are in the world, listen as we discuss everything you need for you and your health business to survive and thrive. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. 7 o'clock again on Wednesday. I've mucked up the feed, so here comes Dave and James now. Sorry about that. And here comes Kate, and here comes Celia. Sorry. It was, where's Celia? Sorry about that. When I checked in about 10 minutes ago, it hadn't actually gone on Facebook and thing. And so then I tried it and then I had to do a new one. There we go. So here we are, everybody, back again. Hi, Kate.
Good morning, Justin.
You made it back just before lockdown.
I did. About 48 hours, 72 hours, something like that, yes. But we came back when we were due to come back. We didn't have to do any crazy,
I had friends who drove down last Tuesday to near Breve and then had to send the kids back on Friday early. It cost €1,200. The two kids, Tom and Isabel, came back on their own, so they didn't have to get locked down. How nuts is that? Quite an expensive holiday. Dave and Marie are still out there. So didn't want the kids to miss school. So, yeah, quite an expensive trip. So, how's everybody? All good?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody any idea what we're going to have a chat about today?
Celia's in charge today.
Get a copy of the book, Celia. So,
yeah, chapter 1 of the Painless, 7 Pillars of a Painless Practice. Yeah. Oh, we've all got them here. All the PDF versions. Well, I think we wrote the book quite a while ago, and then we wrote another one a few years ago, just updating it. So they both are similar, but the Painless 7 Pillars of Painless Business is a little bit updated, but chapter 1 remains completely the same. And whenever someone asks me what is the most important chapter of my book, I always say the first chapter. So I think it's really, really important to understand what you want overall in life before you start creating your practice, because your practice will contribute to whatever successes you want in all the different aspects of your life, whether it's time, energy, or money. You've got to think of those 3 elements and how your growth of your practice impacts those 3 elements, and then how they then contribute to what you want overall in life. So the way the book is written is we give you kind of hints and tips and we give you frameworks to work out what you want for your practice. So it's not about us telling you this is a blueprint of a perfect practice. It's actually it's a platform to guide you through creating the practice that you really, really want. So the book is kind of formed of a whole lot of exercises, which results in a plan.
There's this gorgeous piece on the first page of the first chapter from Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Through the looking glass.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is an absolutely valid point, though, isn't it? That there's so many people who advise other people on their businesses who turn around and say you should be doing this in this way, and it's great advice if that's what you want. If they have the kind of business, or they're advising you on how to create a business which you want, then it's fantastic advice. Follow it, and you're going to be successful. But most people will go, well, I want to do that because they look like they're having fun, or it looks like the kind of business they're enjoying it, and I want some of that enjoyment, and think, well, if I mimic that and reproduce that, it's going to get me there. And it's not. It's work out what you want first. The bit in there which I really enjoyed was the values exercise. I love a good values exercise, because things pop up. Get the honesty, the integrity, and all of those kind of cheesy stuff out of the way. When you really delve down into your true values, and you use them as a lens to view the world and a way of communicating to the world, it's powerful stuff. I mean, your list is a little bit short, though. I mean, the list I use is about 500, but I appreciate, it's a book, isn't it? You kind of tune in there, but the values exercise is something I'd advise everybody to spend time doing.
Yeah. And I think, we wrote the book so long ago, and my thinking around values has evolved so much since then. I'm a kind of real fan of Don Miller, and he talks about how businesses, should only have 3 core values, and because that's all you'll remember. And it's so true. I did an exercise with a PR company once, and we came up with 4 values. And whenever I think about them, I can only remember 3. And it's never the same 3, but it's always, I kind of think, oh, what was the 4th one again? But I also think, the next step with, you might come up with these words, but actually what do those words mean? So, like passionate, we care about everything we do. But then what does that mean in terms of your behaviors? So it's kind of then breaking it down and really getting to grips with what are those values. And sometimes the values are easier to think about when you think about things that frustrate you, and what really irritates you, and then you think, oh, what value would that be going against the grain for? What is the opposite of that frustration? So I think, if I rewrote the book, I'd probably spend a chapter just on values.
Yeah, that interesting one about passionate, I always get a little bit wound up by the term passionate, because I think people overuse it. It's a bit like the term authentic. We overuse it. And if you look at passionate and what it truly means, it means suffering. And, I don't fancy one of my values as being suffering, but it means what it means to you. And as long as you use it powerfully to communicate with the world really, really well, and you live those values, it kind of doesn't matter what other people think about them. It doesn't matter that some bald bloke on a Wednesday morning thinks that passionate is an overused term and we use it wrong. But that crafting of the different words. What have I got on my mind? Love, learning, freedom, and fun. I've got 4 because I'm being difficult, but I can remember them all. And learning was one I chose particularly. I was looking at education, because education is one of my values, and study. And then I use learning, because learning kind of encompasses not just me kind of bringing stuff into my world so I can get better, but me using that ability to help other people as well. So I can use that learning across the board. So it was quite a wide-ranging word to cover a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Just a quick shout out to my friend Tiger Tony Monaghan in Melbourne watching. Melbourne apparently is all locked down. I was just talking to him about 15 minutes ago, 8 o'clock at night curfew. And then my colleague Dave Monroe is a physiotherapist there. Quite interesting. He's just opposite the circus school, which is a feeder school for Cirque du Soleil. Sees loads of jugglers and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. He's got great practice there in Prahan, I believe it is.
Are they going to tell us what their 3 values are? Drop them in the comments. We want to know.
Yeah, what are your 3 values? Tony, what are your 3 values?
I was really impressed when I picked up the book, because I really did fill it in, Celia. I did it in a green pen, so you probably can't see, but I really did fill in every single exercise.
If you'd like to send it to me, I'll mark it for you in red pen.
Clearly, I enjoyed thinking about your 70th birthday and what you'd like life to look like. But then I identified, quite interestingly, I can't remember what year I wrote it, and that was a mistake. I should have dated the year I was filling it in. But I then identified for the second exercise that my 40th birthday, which was in 2016, so it was well past, for exercise 2, in terms of what I wanted everything to look like. And I'm pleased to say the only thing that's occurred is the volume of holiday. I have the volume of holiday that I desired. But other than that, the rest of it, I can redo. Perhaps for my 50th, and maybe I'll hit it for my 50th.
Yeah. And I think that's something to be said about plans. They're not cast in stone, but I think if you do put things down on paper and you go, it gives you a direction to work towards. Yes, life's going to, there's certain, life happens, and, things will happen that you just are completely unexpected and, kind of really just can throw all your plans out the window. But that's fine. Sit down and reevaluate. Are the plans that you made for your 40th, are they still valid for your 50th, or are they different now?
Exactly.
And, give yourself permission to deviate from that plan.
But also make you realise I can simplify it. Actually, of all of those things, I can probably write one word now in each of those boxes rather than the paragraphs I wrote before. But it obviously got me thinking about writing something down, because I filled in every single box.
I'm just waiting to get to 40, and then I can make these decisions. So,
but again, it's a continual process, especially recently. I mean, you used to, go on a course and do these evaluations and then put it away in the bottom drawer, and you never looked at it again. Yeah. Of course, you should be rolling, but especially now, as you said, with things are changing, things have certainly changed a lot in the last few months since we've been talking. For all of us, it's a continual sort of process. Take an inventory every day. One of the 12 steps is take a moral inventory of yourself every day.
The other thing I noticed for when it says pulling it together at the other side, I've written down how many hours a week I want to be working. I'm actually working less hours a week than I asked, and I have been doing for quite some time. So that's good. So I've got my working hours and my holiday in line with what I wished for myself when I completed your book. And the concept of outsourcing and not doing everything myself I have in place as well. So yeah, maybe there's more.
Yeah.
It happens if you truly want it. Celia, there's one exercise.
Dave, check this out. The summary of chapter 1. I need to know my numbers better.
And you are the queen of numbers now. So
she's the queen of numbers. She's like the Riddler, but for numbers. We need to get you a suit with numbers on, don't we? And things like the Fibonacci sequence on, just to show it off.
Shall I read exactly what I wrote? I don't know the year that I wrote this, but it's certainly before 40th. I need to know my
most important numbers in practice, kid.
Sorry?
What are the 5 most important numbers? Yeah, go ahead first, and then I want to outline the 5 most important numbers, please.
I need to know my numbers better. Progress is not fast enough. So, yeah, the impatience is still a bit there. And I wrote something about lack of confidence at the moment in financial management, quality control and training, and my worthiness. Oh, my goodness me.
Ooh, well,
Plan. I feel more ready to move forwards. Well, I've certainly got better at numbers and certainly got better at planning. And my work, I've got to say.
The 5 most important numbers are?
We need to know.
Waist measurements, inside leg measurements, collar as well if you're going for shirts. Sorry, is the wrong conversation?
That's the wrong meeting, Dave. That's the other meeting.
Sorry. I thought I was talking to my tailor.
So, is it patient lifetime value? Is it patient retention? Is it, what's the numbers, Kate?
Cost of client acquisition, lifetime value. Yeah. I think you need to know the profit on every single appointment.
Yeah.
And I think you also need a metric on how many new clients your clinicians are attracting as well. So you've got a sales and marketing metric for them.
Yeah, new patient acquisition cost. Guys used to think patients appear in a puff of smoke. We talked about that with Jerry Durham about 3 or 4 months ago. I must get these podcasts sorted out. My guys were sort of thought that the patient just arrived and there was no cost to it. I think we were averaging a cost of about 65 for some patients at one stage, €65. So if they didn't go on to any further treatments, It was actually probably a negative cost. Well, our initial fee at some places was €95 in Dublin, so you were making €30. They all thought you were making the 95. No, people just think, there's your Google AdWords costs, your email marketing, all those things add in for the patient to be sitting in the chair, and if they leave the clinic without any further appointments. That's not good. So that's where your patient, your retention, your and then up into programs of packages of care, all those stats are really important, because everybody's just walking out without any further visits. It can become quite an expensive exercise, can't it?
Going back to this first chapter of Celia's, what I think is really interesting when I read it as a clinician rather than as a business owner is to get what you want, you must first define it. Now, with every client, that's what you're going to do. What is it that you want? Why are you here? What's the purpose of this appointment? How can I best help you? Why do we need to resolve your back pain? Are we trying to get you back to tennis? Are we trying to get you back to golf? Are we trying to get you back to gardening? What are we trying to get you back to? And I think, especially at the moment where people are rehabilitating their clinics and to get their businesses back on their feet, it's remembering to ask and take the time to listen to the answer to that question in exactly the same way as you would do a patient. Because you won't start treating a patient until you understand where the destination is. Now, in the first session, they might be in such acute pain that you've just got to do what you need to do but once people are getting on the road to recovery, you can take more time because there's different things they're going to do. If they're an 80-year-old lady who wants to be able to get on the floor to play with their granddaughter compared to if it's an elite tennis player. So just applying those same principles that you apply to a client, to yourself and your business, I think is critical because it could take you in completely different trajectories, which is exactly the point of the comment that you have in there about Alice talking to the cat, that if the cat asks Alice where does she want to go, and if she doesn't mind where she wants to go, well, she's going to take a long time wandering around to get nowhere.
This is what Tyson posted this morning on his, can you see this? It says, can you read it? Read it out. I'll read it out for you. Everybody just wants to be liked and accepted, except Tom. Tom doesn't give a shit. He's talking about your patients. He's like, not every patient that walks into your podiatry business is going to be to like you. Be like Tom. That was quite a good one this morning.
I saw that this morning. It's interesting, actually, going back to what you're saying about getting clear on what people want from, if we're talking about patients, getting clear what they actually want from their consultation with you and actually spending the time to examine that and listening. There was a great post on Instagram by Ian Griffiths, a sports pod, who actually talks about history taking, and his technique, which he's talked about before, is brilliant. You ask a question, what can I do for you today? And you sit back and you shut up and you don't say anything until they finish talking. And there's some great stats he's put on here that, on average, a person brings 1.2 to 3.9 concerns to a consultation, which is quite a lot. And he was talking about the fact that people don't present what they want in the order that they want. And this is, thinking about it from the perspective of what do you want in your business. You might say at the beginning, I want more money to do X, Y, and Z. But actually, when you've given yourself time to explore it further, the real reason or the real thing you want is much, much further in that conversation. And if you stop it too soon, you lose that option or that chance to do it. So if you interrupt people a bit too soon, it can ruin it. But it was saying, he said here, when a clinician takes 18 to 23 seconds on average to interrupt a patient, but most of them speak for about 60 to 150 seconds. So if you can sit back and wait for 3 minutes, it's amazing. It's amazing what comes out as part of that consultation. But going back to this chapter, knowing what you want and giving yourself the space and time to be clear on what you want and giving yourself the space to actually to think about it long enough so you truly know what you want is really, really important.
Yeah, I think it's really, and that's why right in the beginning of the chapter we talk about that it's your practice and it's for you, and it's not about coming up with what you think you should be doing. It's about coming up with what you want to do, and it is really hard because you've got so many influences that surround you, that your parents, your colleagues, your patients even, you've got so many different influences that you think, oh, I should be doing this for them. I should be doing that. I should be doing it exactly like this person down the road. And so you've got to get beyond that and really just give yourself permission to dream and really clarify what it is that you want. Because if you're building a business that's based on what you think you should be doing, your enthusiasm for it is going to wane quite soon.
And the resentment which comes with that massive resentment when you're 5-6 years down the line, and maybe you're earning good money, but the business is ruling you, not the other way around. Yeah. You actually, one of the things in your chapter which I really liked was the 70-year-old exercise, the 70th birthday party exercise. I really like that. The fact that you are, okay, for some people on the call, 70 is a little bit closer, not looking at any one particular cake, but, it's, I'm going to get in trouble for that one. But it's thinking that far ahead and thinking about if someone's going to stand up with a microphone and do a speech with you about on your 70th birthday, what are they going to say about you? And I love that idea. And I had a very similar exercise I did 2018, which is probably part of why I sold my business. Because I looked forward, I think it was 80 or 90 I looked at. And it was kind of, what are you going to be? What are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? And what's going to be kind of your source of income in your life and your life going to be like? And then you track it back every 15 years or so until you get to the point you're at now. And I realized that a clinical podiatry business wasn't anywhere on that track. And I kind of sat there and went, oh, that's quite telling. And it was having the time to explore that kind of brought out truly where I wanted to be going with direction. And that stuff's really quite powerful to have those exercises. So even if you just take time on chapter 1 of your book, you're going to get some really good stuff out of it.
I just think, and it's using all the exercises in combination. I remember reading an article in the Harvard Business Review years ago, and it was all about how it was like this whole thing about how they felt that there was a lack of life planning in degrees and things like that, because people go to Harvard and they're really successful and they're very career orientated and they get up to the top of their game, and unfortunately a lot of the time when people just focus on their careers, they get to the top of the game and then they kind of look back and think, they're either unhappily married or not married or lonely or have dysfunctional relationships with their children, or they've achieved their financial goal, their status in their career, but the rest of the stuff. So in the 2020 vision, where you choose a date in the future and you think, well, what do you want to be true about your finances, your environment, your health, your relationships, all that kind of
2
thing.
weeks ago, nearly at this time, again, it's 23 minutes past 7 now. How many people are hitting the snooze button? They're pulling the duvet over, do not want to get out of bed to go to the job they hate. We talked about all this. They make a decision at 17, 18, which dictates the rest of their life. How many people do you know, apart from me, who actually love what they're doing? It's not many. Not many.
I'm wondering how many people as well are actually going to turn around and not call it 2020 vision anymore. Because if you think about a 2020 vision, it probably involves COVID, and we don't want to think about that.
Yeah. And when we wrote the book, it was kind of obviously the 2020 vision is that you can see clearly, but actually 2020 was a date quite well in the future, and now it's kind of actually, let's talk about 2030 or 2050 or something. I don't know.
I'm still waiting on hoverboards at the moment, and I'm massively disappointed we haven't got hoverboards. They talked about these in the 1980s, for God's sake, and we haven't got them. Come on, scientists, pull your finger out. Stop looking for a COVID thing and start finding me a hoverboard.
We were talking yesterday. We can't believe that we haven't got a golf ball that will whistle to you when it's in the rough, so that you can find it. I have to say though, I didn't do one single ball yesterday, but
I had a friend who's got a patent on, but it's really difficult to put a tracker inside the golf ball. But of course, the force is what it compresses. You ever seen the slow motion when the ball just compresses? So you can't really do it. So, if you're like me when you play golf, especially in Ballyliffin, and we just talked about I did par a couple of holes, so I must be doing something right, and I don't play golf.
You'd use an external system for it. So if you, instead of putting something in the ball which is going to get damaged, and that's costly and expensive, what you do instead is you have a system set up on the golf course which can track an object in 3 dimensions as it moves through it, and you just make the ball so it shows up on that system, a bit like pins you use for biomechanical assessments, 3D analysis. And then you can, as long as you can pick up some of that trajectory, you can get an idea of where the ball's going to land.
Same as forecasting on spreadsheets.
And I don't even play golf. I played the first 9 on a hole on a course down in Gloucestershire after a stag do back in 2014, and I was crap. So I just went and hid in the clubhouse and fell asleep and had some food and let everyone else play. Otherwise, I still would have been playing now.
Well, but there's the thing is, if that's what do you want your golf to be like in, I don't know, 5 years time, or so I know it's not really relevant for the top half of the screen looking at Justin and Dave, but for Kate and I, it might be actually
in about 6 months' time. That's what I'm doing. I'm practicing my backhand. I'm getting a lesson later on this week. One of the local coaches here, he is John McGahan. Unbelievable. He's top 800 in the world. He lives 5 minutes out the road. Head of captain of the Irish Davis Cup team, I think it is, Federation Cup team. He coaches all the kids all around here. I couldn't believe it. Saw him serving the other day. I was like, holy God. And then looked, got a chat. Yeah, top 800 in the world. I've got to get my backhand just
I'm sure you could aim higher than that, couldn't you? Top 20 in the world? I'm sure you could. I reckon you could find someone who's doing top 20 and get them down to teach you.
Well, no, he's like top in the UK and Ireland. He's probably in the top like 20 or 30, but top 800 in the world, 746 or something.
Jeez, top 800 out of 7 billion people. That's not bad, is it, I suppose.
Come over. I'll be ball boy. Same teach you, school you. I returned a couple of serves the other day, and I got one racket on it. Comes so low and bounces so low. It all kept hitting the bottom of the frame. Amazing. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Improving my backhand. But the thing is, say we touched on. Dave's point was working really hard and making lots of money. I tell you what is worse. And I was talking to somebody yesterday in the southwest of England, working really hard and making no money. That's even worse. And they couldn't be talked to about a mindset. They haven't put up their fees. We can't do it in my area. I'm going to lose all my business if I do it. Working really hard and making no dough. That's the worst scenario.
But then it's going back and it's having that conversation. I mean, we talk about mindset a lot, and mindset's a big thing, but some people are not ready to be told that their mindset isn't right. And it's like non-Newtonian polymers. You walk across a swimming pool full of custard because you're applying a high force, you don't sink into it. As soon as you stop and wait and very gently stand on it, you sink into it. And that's probably what you need to do with that person, is actually don't look at it a hard way of saying, put your fees up, do this, do that. It's actually kind of sit down with them and really very gently understand what the problem is and help them to get past that.
Because when she came on the call, I'd asked her to watch a couple of videos that I'd done over the last couple of months. Too busy to do it. Right. So again, we had a 5-minute conversation and I went and played tennis because I told her to watch. We talked about this with my live call yesterday and we mentioned her in it and that whole mindset. And Dr. Tian and TJ Ann specializes in minimal invasive surgery. I mean, he was like the guys he works with in areas that aren't in big cities. Well, the patients there have actually got lower living costs and stuff, so they can actually afford more. Rather, if you're in a rural area, rather than living in a big city. That was his point of view, and he was all about the mindset change. So this person unnameless in the southwest of England has got this fixation in her head that it's, and I'm in a poor area. And I'm like, there's somebody up the road charging double what you are, about 20 miles away. I cut her short yesterday. I was like, watch the hour and 20 minutes with Dr. TJ yesterday. And then if you want to talk then, and you actually can be bothered to watch it, because you're wasting my time, I'm off to play tennis. No, I did cut her short, but I'd given her half an hour 2 weeks before. She hadn't bothered watching the bloody videos. Anyway.
So this is all about...
Switching with me, it's going to be hard love, not pussyfooting around. Yeah, people on a different journey, different level, and you meet the person.
If you were okay, as an example, when I started looking at coaching for my business being coached, I had a coach who was an absolutely amazing coach, but sadly their approach didn't suit me. They were very much you must do this, get down, give me 20, do this now, do it in this way. And I don't respond to that. I do not respond to that. It just bounces off me and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. The coach I had after that was a coach who was actually someone who was more gentle, someone who was more into kind of, I suppose you could almost say woo-woo type stuff. The changes which went on in my business and the increase in turnover once I'd started working with that person was monumentally different. Now, that's not saying that the coach number one was crap, because they weren't. But the point was it was understanding the approach to me, and it was understanding what was going to work for me. And I think when people tell me what to do and tell me I've got to do something, it's just like, I'm not going to do it.
I would have been nicer yesterday if she could have been bothered over the last 2 weeks to just spend an hour watching a couple of videos that I pointed out to her. She hadn't done her homework. Next. My coach, that was my business coach, Paul Wright. Righty. I always got worried about Saturday. I used to have a call Tuesday morning his time. He was always checking homework, checking you'd done this, checking you'd done that, checking your new patient register. And it was always a thing that you didn't have your eye on that he would actually sort of check that week. You need accountability. This is it. You need somebody checking the numbers, because what's the point? What's the point in somebody spending money with you because they're wasting their time? I won't want to take somebody's money. I don't want to take somebody. I said, this girl isn't yet a coaching client. I said, if you were a coaching client, I'd be binning you and giving your dough back. I don't want to work with you if you're going to be like that. Why would you? Why would you want them to waste their time, their effort, and their money with you if they weren't going to implement and do the things that you could know that will really dramatically change their business?
So if we go back to kind of chapter 1 of Celia's book, and we look at what their vision is, and we understand where they are at the moment, for example.
Well, she's got a vision. She's got a vision.
She has, right? but then there's certain things. I mean, okay, from a coaching perspective, it's challenging that vision, asking the question: is it truly what they want, and is it true? Are they willing to do the things to get there? But it's understanding exactly where they are at that point.
Her vision is to employ another podiatrist and utilize her free clinical space and that sort of stuff. But it was like, well, she did actually say, I'll she goes, I'll tell you what, I'll put my fees up 25%. And I was like, £400 a week, 20 grand. She goes, but I'll have to spend that on the new receptionist. It's like, okay, it's like, well, let's put it up 35%, and then you will have a little bit of money. I mean, it wasn't happening.
It's complex, and it comes down to it's not just necessarily about the functions of the business. It's about understanding the person who is running the business, and it's about making sure that they're very clear on who they are before they look at the business stuff. You talk about Paul Wright. Your coach was very much he suited your style, and that's really, really powerful. My experience is when I've had coaches that don't suit my style, or I don't suit their style, it's not powerful at all. It doesn't work in the least. But you have to experience this.
I have 3 or 4 different coaches, but I'm worried. She was like, well, if I put up our prices, you're going to be closed by this September. I was like, if you don't put up your prices, you're going to be closed by December. That's what's happening. £30 for a routine treatment, £35 for a dog, Dave.
Maybe they want to be closed by December.
Okay, maybe she does. She only bought the practice, borrowed money to buy it, I think about 30 or 40 grand, turned up. Of course, all the patient lists that were there, they hadn't been for years. And all these patients that have been pre-booked in for for the whole year, they haven't turned up yet because the whole closed down. She's going bust.
So again, coming back to to concluding this first chapter and how I view it as a clinician, is that again, this is about the structure and function. So if you're going back to those basic principles of Wolff's Law, you need to define what the function of the business is to make sure that you create the right structure. And this first chapter of Celia's book is all about describing the function of the business for your personal life. And what I really liked is at the end of each chapter, it directs you to the back of the book, to page 110, where you start to put in the summary of each chapter to build your own business plan. And it starts very, very much, the summary is having defined your personal vision. What are the key elements of that? So you're creating the function, you're defining the function before you start building the structure. Just as a termite would, just as an architect would, you're not just creating something from nothing. Now, what obviously I've created is different from what I defined previously, but at least I defined something, and some of those very, very important personal elements in terms of the amount of hours I work, the amount of holiday I have, and the relationships I actually have with my family are defined and are there. So, yeah, it's not complete, but, you know, what termite mound ever is. So I really appreciate that as a clinician, you can relate this to what you already know, defining what the function is of the structure you're creating, or just as a client, when they first come into the treatment room, you really listen. What is it they want out of this, so that you make sure that you design your treatment plan to meet their needs, rather than just a generic template of success that you think you should be doing, that we want to be doing.
I was talking to somebody in Barcelona last night, so maybe your practice is like the Santa Familia in Barcelona, which still haven't finished after 400 years. It's a continual process, you know.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like, yeah, there you go. So what's everybody up to?
It's a journey, it's not a destination.
There's no tennis. We're going fishing. My uncle's coming down. We're going fishing because it's raining. He's coming down. High tide's at half 12. Anybody wants to pop down, we'll be out at Green Ore catching mackerel, hopefully.
Could you not use a tennis racket to launch the bait into the sea?
Possibly. I've got a good big beach caster, so it's pretty good. My uncle Jeff, he's do you think I'm intense? Oh my God. Retired general surgeon. He's retired general surgeon. Very focused. It'll be quite entertaining after it. He's coming down about 10:30. We're going to grab a cup of coffee here and then go fishing because it's quite damp. Anyway, so sum up, Kate, please.
Oh, I think I just have to now. Sum up. Read this book and really try and read it as a clinician in terms of, you can really think about that first chapter in the way you talk to clients, and just talk to yourself in the same way to get the definition of what the purpose is that you're trying to create. And remember, with every single client, what is a successful outcome for them is all different. Mary, who you see at 9:30, wants something completely different to Tom that you've seen at 10 o'clock. Success for you as a clinic owner will be completely different compared to the chap down the road who you're viewing as a competition. You probably want entirely different things, and that's fine. So just take the time to define what it is you want, what the function is of the business for you personally, so you start to create the right structure. And yes, of course, your numbers have to stack. We'll come on to that in later chapters.
And the next chapter is the purpose, which is all about making sure that you really understand what the patient wants. And how
it's interesting.
You want to create.
That's the question. You know, what do you want from this consultation today? What do you want from it today? What can I do for you today? And then
it's what you want today. It's what you want today and what you want further down the line. But yeah, that's going to be a conversation for another day. What I will say about your book, though, Celia, is that it is. I really like the writing style because it's very easy to read and it's very conversational, which I really enjoy. It's not too technical. It's very easy to access. So if anyone hasn't got it, go and get it because it's a good read.
Where can people who are watching get a copy of your book?
On my website, so www.painlesspractice.com.
Yeah, and rate it before you fill it all in, so that you know when you filled it in, when you look back at it.
And can they get it on Amazon as well, Celia?
I beg your pardon?
Can they get it on Amazon as well?
They can, but it's better to get it off Painless practice website. It's easier for us.
Always better to go to the source, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you show us the front cover of the book, please? Everybody knows what it looks like. The Painless.
Celia, are you going to sign copies for people as well if they quote they were on this call?
We can do.
That puts the value up immensely, doesn't it?
Yeah, my scroll.
That's us until same time next week. Thank you very much for watching. For Forgotten Feet again, forgottenfeet.org, charity doing sterling work. Next year, John's End of John O'Groat, Cycle and Sail. We're looking for sponsorship. And Dave?
We have as well Foot Health over in Banbury. Kieran and his team are doing, I think, between the 11th and 13th of September, they're actually putting on some kind of online education over 3 evenings, which is with proceeds going to Forgotten Feet. So if you go and check out Foot Health, I'll see if I can find the link for that as well. Yeah. So I was chatting with Kieran last week about that. ForgottenFeet.org. It's not on the website for Forgotten Feet yet, but if you go and check out Foot Health Orthotics down in Banbury, then they will have some details about the course on there.
Cool. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you all.